Welcome to Learning to Glow, a show about wellness, skin health, and self-development. I'm your host, Jess. I'm a mom, entrepreneur, and skincare expert. I'm so excited to share tips on how to achieve healthy skin and bring amazing guests in the field of health, fitness, aging gracefully, and personal growth. Let's explore all different ways we can take care of ourselves as women, both inside and out, to truly shine. So let's get glowing. Hello, everyone. Today we have an amazing episode with our guest, Jodi Scott. She is a pioneer in the health and wellness industry, and today we talk all about the healing power of medicinal plants. Jodi is the founder of Green Goo, a sustainable and natural first aid company. We talked a lot about how plants can be healing in so many different ways. Plant extracts can be used topically with skin conditions to hydration and protection. Also in a lot of different first aid uses, which I love to hear more about these and what ingredients are really great to put on the skin. We also touched on plant medicine when it comes to psychedelics, which is a super interesting topic to me. I loved learning about this and the positive effects of these psychedelics and some of the studies that are currently out there. With her background in health psychology, she was able to break down the biosocial model for health and using an integrative approach. I love speaking with Jodi. I hope you all enjoy this episode. Everyone, welcome back to our show. Jodi, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Jess. Excited to visit with you.
We have so many fun things that we can talk about today. So I'm very excited. You are the founder of Green Goo and so much more. So I always like to start with, please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do.
Awesome. Thank you. So, yes,
Sure.
my mom, sister, and I started Green Goo. My sister's an herbalist and a midwife. And then I was pre
Mm.
med, actually got my master's in health psychology, and was very passionate about psychoneuroimmunology. So, very much how our mind, body, nervous system, and immune system are all interwoven and connected. And, my sister was going to herb school at the time, and she learned this wonderful process of how to extract from plants this beautiful botanical profile. And we were just kind of talking a little bit about that process and skincare. And we made this really interesting observation, which was here we were, people who were living very clean, natural lives, really cared about sustainability and natural ingredients. But if you opened up our first aid cabinet, it was like all of that went out the door. It was all the chemicals, one time use, plastic tubes that get thrown into the landfill. And we were like, why are we making this exception? And then, I had a 1 year old at the time, and I'm like, and I'm putting this stuff on my daughter. And then we started to look at this space even more. And what we recognized is that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they were told things like calamine, neosporin, hydrocortisone were the only products that could get the job done. So we weren't alone. And then we recognized with the conventional consumer, they really didn't care what the ingredients were. They just wanted something that performed better. And if you look at the first aid space, they're really only addressing acute skin conditions. Use 5 to 7 days. If symptoms persist, discontinue use, your arm will fall off. I don't know. It'll be organ failure, but it's toxic over a period of time. And then you have to go to your physician and get a prescription medication. And so, generally speaking, people were looking for products that just had better efficacy. And so we thought, can we make a plant-based solution lead with efficacy first? So it speaks to everyone. We're going to give you the results that you're looking for, hopefully exceed expectations, but then be 100% plant-based and also bring sustainability and then bring some fun personality to the first aid space because everything looks so, medical. And so that's Green Goo was born. And I talked a little bit about how when my sister and I had this first conversation, that it was the process that was so interesting. And we almost didn't get to scale Green Goo because the process is so unique. We actually bring the plants to our manufacturing facility where we take it through this unique extraction process. We yield high amounts of the medicinal properties. And then these custom oils go into all of the products. So you can't get this concentration of herbal extractions anywhere on the market. along with this combination. And it's the process by which this works. And we were just very fortunate enough that, a manufacturer whose son had eczema, he used our product and he was like, all right, we got to figure out how to scale this because the world needs these products. And that product has been used by John Hopkins in their scleroderma and skin condition department now for almost a decade. So it was really special to be able to take this from our kitchen to a manufacturer, get FDA registration, and really start speaking to these herbs in the medicinal way that they can offer solutions.
I'm so excited to hear more about this. This is so exciting because you're right. Like, as a mom, I'm a mom of 2 boys, and when it's 1 AM and your kid isn't feeling good, you just want something that works.
Yep.
And yes, it's true. Like, there's been times where I know a lot of moms like this too, were very interested in holistic living and green living, and then, like, give me the red dye 40 Tylenol, like whatever works, because you don't want your kid to suffer and we want to make sure that what we're doing is helpful. So, and tell me about a little bit about like what that means. Your clients are living more of a holistic green lifestyle. So, this is really important to them. There's a lot of people who want something that works and also that they can feel good about putting on their kids or themselves even. So, tell me more about like the client that you see.
Absolutely. So I'd say, the majority of our Green Goo followers are like the purists. They're really looking at holistic skincare. They're looking at it as a nutritive resource. They're looking at the sustainability component, and very aware of ingredients. And so, but what has been really fun in this journey is converting the conventional consumer who wouldn't normally even explore natural. They would look at naturals like, oh, it's a compromise. One, it's too expensive, or two, it's not really going to perform well. I'm just going to, use it because I care about natural, but it's at at an expense to performance. And then we get customers who are like, oh my gosh, I've had poison ivy for 6 months. I'm tired of it. I'm looking at the shelf and I see green goo and I figure, what the heck? This is like a last ditch effort. And they're like, it's gone in 2 days. It's gone. Like, what the heck? What else do you have? And so it's really fun to bring people over and invite them to this whole new world of holistic plant-based skincare. And we say, we have a saying like, if you can't eat it, you shouldn't wear it. And you start to think a little bit more about ingredients. My daughter's 12 now, and she has a little app that she uses at the store because, of course, she's very influenced by, different skincare brands. And I'm like, well, I want to give you autonomy. I don't want to sit there and be like, no, this is the good, this isn't. But here's an app. And then you can kind of discern. And she'll be like, Mom, look at this packaging. Like, I thought that this was going to be natural, and this is like 2%. And so it's interesting when you start really diving into the ingredients and then looking at the opportunities. So it's not just about what not to have in your skincare, but what to invite in your skincare. And I'm just an ingredient junkie, and we can talk about all kinds of plants if you want to.
I feel like we should. I've been in skincare for a long time, and when there's so many different types of ingredients that we can use, it is confusing for the consumer to try to figure that all out. They're not experts in that, and a lot of companies will say, and I've said this for a long time, we're natural and this is a natural brand. And then when you really look at it, you're like, you're not natural at all. So let's talk about ingredients. Like, what are some things that, like you said, we could invite in? I'd love to talk about some of the positive herbal based ingredients and why they work so well and they've been around for so long. So there's a lot of data there, but maybe we could talk about that.
And you bring up a really good point. When you think about plant based solutions, they've been around for hundreds and thousands of years. And truly, most of the chemicals that we're being exposed to, parabens, phthalates, fragrances, they're pretty new.
Right.
They are in the last 50 to 100 years as a result of the Industrial Revolution. So, it's interesting when you think about the fact, to your point, that these plants have been here forever and we're only just discovering all of their amazing properties.
And
And
a
I'm
lot of times, I'm sorry, but a lot of times these companies are trying to just replicate what the natural stuff does anyway, but they just want like the cheaper solution. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
And it's so true. It's so true. And, good products, clean products, you don't need to use them. It's interesting. You start using them initially liberally, and then over time, you just don't need them as much because your skin tells you and shows you that it's working. And you see the results versus a lot of these short-term products, for example, may have chemical properties in there that may plump your skin for a short period of time. So you think, oh, okay, like in 2 days, all of a sudden I've got this like nice glow, but then 5 days later, your skin looks really depleted. And it's because, you weren't giving it the nourishment that you need. So one of my favorite plants is calendula. We use it pretty much in most of our products. On the basic level, it has antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial properties. But more data is showing that it has plant stem cell properties. And when you start thinking about plant stem cell and rejuvenation on the skin, it's incredible. And have you ever heard of telomeres?
Yes.
Yes. Well, we're learning more that in your epidermis, there's actually a high concentration of an enzyme that helps regenerate your telomeres. So, your telomeres are the end caps to your DNA, and they give you an indication of your longevity. So, all these things that we're doing, that we're exposing ourselves to, reduce the telomere length. And perhaps we knew something about this, like intuitively humans, because we would always look at the skin and be like, oh, if it glows, you must be healthy. That perhaps could be our telomeres and the enzymes talking about what is going on in our body systemically. And perhaps the skin, our largest organ, plays a bigger role in our overall health and wellness. So when I think about that more, I'm like, okay, what other nutrients can I give it? So my favorite Green Goo product is the Repair product. And this was designed to be a really more for like scars
Mm.
and what it has evolved into is an anti-aging product. And I put this on my face every night before I go to bed. I live in Colorado. There's no hydration here. And some of these ingredients are just so special. Aloe vera is so hydrating and so nourishing. Rosehip oil, high in vitamin C. You've got yarrow in there, which is known to repair your cells and really concentrate. So you can bring all of these nutritive resources in there. And if you've ever used a salve before, it's a whole
Mhm.
different experience. And at first you're like, oh, this feels really strange to be putting this like oily butter balm on you. But we have a saying, butter up, salve up, and really let your skin just soak it up. And I have so many men that will tell me, like, I don't do skincare. This is not my thing. I need low maintenance skincare. And I'm like, tell me about it. Like, this sits on my nightstand and I put it on before I go to bed. And guys will start using it and they're like, I'm getting compliments on my skin. I've never had compliments on my skin before. So highly recommend the Repair. And then an oil face wash. Have you ever used an oil face wash?
Yes. And they're
Yeah.
popular. They're way more popular than they used to be. They work so well.
So well, and getting all of the makeup and the dirt off of your skin without drying your skin out. And you're right, 10 years ago, you talked about an oil face wash and people are like, "What?" And it's strange when you first use it because you feel like you're supposed to splash all of it off and get that dry feeling that you get when you use like a foaming face wash. You don't. You just splash it a couple times and then you dry with a towel. Of course, be aware your towel, it's going to get all of that makeup and dirt off and you're going to see it. But it's amazing. And what we found is we add things like rosemary and lavender along with calendula, again being one of my favorites. We always think of lavender as being an aromatic plant, but it has so many medicinal properties to it in terms of antioxidants and helping with free radicals. And so when you're having a pure oil like that with a pure infusion of these plants that are getting highly absorbed, so you want those plant-based oils are like your transporters. So they go in and they penetrate the skin so that you get all of these nutritive properties. So those are my two favorite from like a low maintenance facial skincare, does the trick, and then you get that little glow.
It's so funny because I think we as a society have been sort of taught that a dry, squeaky clean squeaky clean in quotes feel is what the end result should be when you're using skincare, when you're washing your face. And really, it's so hard to let people know, like, that's really so stripping and damaging to your barrier. So using something that's more nourishing, and it's, it might feel counterintuitive, but it's so much more effective, and it's going to help protect your skin so much more. So I love all of that. And I think I cannot wait to try these products, by the way. I'm really excited. I love some of those ingredients that you use as well, because I use rosehip seed in an oil that I have as well. And it's incredible. It's so brightening. It's a superstar ingredient in my eyes. So I'm excited to try that.
I'm gonna add to the rosehip oil,
Yeah.
just the smells too. It gives you like that mind body, because mindfulness is an important attribute to
Yeah.
skincare as well. We try to bring in some of those Ayurvedic practices and certain
Mm.
essential oils that help stimulate. And rosehip oil just happens to be one of those like perfect blends of this plant-based oil with this natural aroma that just like, to your point, it just like brightens your day. Yeah, it's good stuff.
It is. I feel also what you said is so important, because I think a lot of times what the more unnatural lines are doing is they're trying to recreate that with the fragrance too. They
Mhm.
want to, because doing your skincare and applying things to your skin is a beautiful practice. It is self-care. It is, very calming. And so to have those experiences with something that's actually from plants and natural is just so much more, it just feels so much better.
It does. Like when I butter up, I'll do head to toe in salve. And I'll in the evening butter up, put my bathrobe on, let my skin just soak it up before I put my pajamas on. And the next day I feel different and all like better and like recharged and revived. And it was just from doing that, to your point, like that skincare routine that's a part of your health and wellness. My daughter, again, 12, and being inundated with all of these different ideas, we have an acronym in the house because we want to really, again, give her autonomy, but also be able to make quick decisions. So we use the acronym SHAMAN. So S is for sleep. And, I'm always like, hey, add to the sleep bank. If you're going to go have your sleepovers, you want to make sure that you really slept well during the week so that you can pull from that sleep bank, because sleep is just so important for our vitality and our health. H is hydration. And this is not only just so she can think about, okay, when she's on her way to dance, do I pick the Gatorade that's full of sugar, or do I pick a hydrating beverage that's going to be better for me? But this also comes back to skincare. And hydration in your skincare is so important. And there's a lot of plants that provide hydration. Of course, aloe vera, like we talked about, but calendula is another one, provides a lot of hydration for your skin. So, thinking about the ingredients in your products, make sure that they're going to be providing hydration and not pulling out hydration, which a lot of chemicals will do that. And then A is avoid. And going back to like what you were talking about with the chemicals, this is parabens, fragrances, phthalates. Phthalates is the number one produced chemical on the planet. The
Mm.
US, I think I've read about 1 billion pounds a year they produce this. And this isn't just coming from your ingredients, this is coming from your packaging. So really
Yeah.
choose your packaging wisely, because there's a lot of leaching that's happening. And avoid also means avoiding sugar, avoiding alcohol, reducing that intake, because avoiding is just as important as what to invite. And then M is mindfulness. And this kind of comes back to my health psychology days, which is really fun to see this relationship with your skin and mindfulness. And there's even more research coming out. There's been different journals, whether it's the Journal of Dermatology, teaming up with behavioral science and looking at, you know, people who practice mindfulness on a regular basis. There's evidence to improve their eczema. There's evidence that they can reduce inflammation. And so looking at mindfulness in little, microcosms throughout the day to impact your overall health and wellness. And then the next A is antioxidants. So this
Mhm.
goes back to your products and the food that you're bringing in. There's blueberries and raspberries and all these different things that, are high in antioxidants, your vegetables. But then again, the products that you're putting on your skin are inviting into your home. And then N is nutrition, which just kind of couples with, everything else. And so my daughter can make quick decisions throughout the day to say, okay, where does this fit in for her so that she can still have treats, but she's kind of has her North Star, to keep at least from a general perspective, how to deal with being inundated with so many options and making quick decisions.
That's so awesome. I have a 13-year-old. So, you get to a point where they are out in the world making decisions and you want to for me, I always wanted to do it in a way where you don't want to shame one thing and say,
Right.
don't do that, because that's like a moth to a flame. I feel like they'll just do
Yep.
it even more. So give them freedom, but also remind them, and also be, hey, when you eat this food, your stomach feels this way. So keep that in mind, pay attention to that, because then you can make your next decision from that place. I love this acronym. And I love what you said about hydration, because I've been an esthetician for over 20 years. And that is one thing that I have seen that is such a simple and powerful tip is, it goes back to what we were saying with the cleanser, how people really relate a dry, stripped feeling to it's working. And I've always said, no, let's add to the skin with hydration. You can be the oiliest person in the world, but you still need hydration. And that is just such a great way. I mean, talk about glow. It's like such an easy way to get the skin to get that glowy look when you are staying hydrated, especially, you're in Colorado. I have family in Arizona. They need all
Yeah.
of the hydration. It's definitely something that, climate based too, you have to pay extra attention to. And
Mhm.
I love what you said about the eczema too. My son had really bad eczema, and there wasn't a lot of options back then. I want to say he was like under 1 years old, and around 1 years old, but the problem was really bad. And we only had Aquaphor, so it's like
Mhm.
there was not a lot of options back then. So I love all of this. This is so exciting.
And to your
And
point, it's like understanding the relationship of your environment and your skin and being able to be aware and proactive. My daughter had eczema when she was younger, and
mhm.
thankfully, she was able to use our dry skin formula to weather a lot of different flare-ups. But now her reaction is pools and chlorine. So that's the thing that will trigger her now. And, for a while there, she was like living off of Benadryl during the summertime because it was pool after pool after pool. And what we identified was one, we created an eczema oil that has a lot of the medicinal properties. But then to that, she puts it on before she goes into the pool while also making sure she's hydrated. Because what she's recognized is if she's dehydrated and she's not taking care of her skin as a protective layer, she actually soaks up more of that chlorine and then ends up having more of a reaction. So she can be more involved in mitigating it. In the last 2 summers, she's had like no Benadryl and she's not having her reactions just by giving it a little bit of nutrition and hydration through that oil with a little bit of a protective layer. So, yeah.
Oh, that's a good tip. That's really good to know. When I first started my wellness journey, I had already been in the skincare industry for years, working on client skin and as an educator for multiple skincare brands. When I learned about how the toxins in our personal care and beauty products could have a negative impact on our health, I knew I needed to make a change. I was used to the result-driven products that I was working with, and I was not happy with the natural products on the market at that time. Although they were safer and cleaner, they did not meet my expectations for results. I created Simply Just Skincare to deliver the results my clients demanded from their products while using natural, toxin-free ingredients. You can check out my clients' results and reviews on my website, simplyjustskincare.com. In 30 days, my clients have reported more hydrated skin, less appearance of fine lines and wrinkles, and more of an overall glow. Our top sellers include our Repair Toner, our Hydrating Undo Serum with hyaluronic acid, and more. I am offering my listeners 20% off their first order with code PODCAST. Check it out in the link in my show notes to get glowing today. I'd love to talk about another one of the shaman steps, which is mindfulness. I'm very interested in your health. Was it health psychology
Mhm.
that you studied in? I mean, obviously, like so much of what we do mentally and how we're doing mind and with our mind, that can affect the skin, like you were saying. Like we can have flare-ups with stress, there's acne, there's eczema, psoriasis, all of these different things. So I'd love to talk a little bit more about that and get your expertise on that, because I think that's something that isn't talked about as much.
You're right. And it feels very full circle for me now, which is fun. So when I got my
Mm,
master's in health psychology, it was the first master's program in the US. And I was training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model. And what that meant
mm,
was when the physician was interacting with the patient, he would look at the patient more than just here's a medication and see you later, come back if it works or it doesn't work. And instead, look at them from what we call now a more integrative approach. What are the barriers? How can we change their lifestyle? What is their diet? So that we can also maximize the effects of this medication. And at the time, this wasn't a part of medical school education. And so, fast forward, which is really great, we're seeing more of this integrative medical approach because the data is there. The data is there to support it. And psychoneuroimmunology was really cutting edge then. Like was there really a connection with the mind and the body? Could we actually influence our immune system? Um, could we manage our nervous system and our thoughts that then could impact our overall health and wellness? And now, there's more than, it started out with a lot of anecdotal data, meaning people would share their experiences. But there was enough of that there started to be money to be put behind this data, behind this research to give real clinical results. And, now we're seeing that. And to your point, this relationship with the mind and the skin and mindfulness. I just learned a new term, which I'm really enjoying, call it, and it's called emotional first aid. And of course, me
mm,
being in first aid, really appreciating this. And what I like about it is they really kind of distilled down very attainable habits and approach and language to looking at how we might be able to, maintain emotional first aid. So like if you have ruminating thoughts, how to or
mm,
negative thoughts, how to substitute that with a positive thought. Looking at your self esteem, finding ways to be very mindful, meeting meditation and building emotional intelligence. I wish we were teaching this in the school system. We shouldn't have to wait until we're adults to learn emotional intelligence and having to be so empowered, on our emotional health. So there's my wish I'm putting out to the universe. that
it's so true. Why aren't we doing that? A lot of times you need the data, but the data is coming, so, and is there. So, and I want to talk a little bit more about kind of just keeping on that path, because a lot of this is considered alternative, right? Medicine, the alternative space. What are other ways that we can help our mind with plants? Because that is something that is really interesting to me, and I know there's probably a lot of people who could really benefit from this.
Well, I'd say the plant renaissance is here. When I was talking plant-based medicine, 10 years ago and talking to like buyers at pharmacies and being like, "Hey, I've got a plant-based Neosporin." And they're like, "Whatever." Thankfully they could try it and experience the results and we've been able to navigate that. But I really attribute the cannabis industry for kind of the tipping point for the plant renaissance. And what I mean by that is, I was talking to a lot of people about how we extract from plants and how they have this like beautiful botanical profile, the entourage effect with the chlorine or the chlorophyll, the terpenes, all the plant properties. And I was at a conference, and it was right when the Farm Bill was being passed, and they had a keynote speaker that was talking to these retailers about, "Hey, here's how you can have." Industrial hemp was then going to be rescheduled, and we were going to be able to have CBD products in the market. And so they were explaining how you extract from the plants, what these cannabinoids look like, and so forth. So when the buyers came back to my booth, I was like, "Okay, remember that keynote speaker? How they were extracting from plants? Or from hemp. That's what we've been doing at Green Goo, but we've been doing it from hundreds of plants. And oh, by the way, there's naturally occurring cannabinoids in other plants besides hemp, echinacea, arugula, black pepper, but, the hemp plant is what gets all the credit. But it just opened up this like world of education that you could actually get, benefits from plants, which then I think pioneered the plant-based renaissance that we are today, and is really resurfacing a lot of these alternative modalities. So you look at things like psychedelics, which I think is really been born from this as well. And see, I grew up in the military, and my, PTSD was a conversation we had at home. And my dad lost people at war, lost people to suicide and PTSD. And it's always been something. And I would watch my dad come back from deployments and watch that integration and how challenging that was. And what we are seeing, for example, with psychedelics, and we have a research study up in Nova Scotia working on treatment resistant PTSD for our vets and servicemen and women. And holy moly, like they come in with, yes, they are suicidal, treatment resistant PTSD, but they also have drug abuse, alcohol abuse, they're overweight, they don't have any, they can't leave their homes, they have no social life and no hobbies, and they do a micro and then a macro dose accompanied by therapy. And again, going back to health psychology, when you're treating treatment resistant populations, you feel like you go 2 steps forward and 10 steps back, and 10 years go by and you're still trying to find how you're going to crack this code. And here you have a micro dose and a macro dose in like 2 sessions, and they're 80% in remission. And not only are they no longer suicidal, they have like hobbies and they lose weight and they quit drinking and they are going to concerts and they're reading books. And in health psychology, when we would talk about neuroplasticity, which is essentially you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Like there
Hmm.
was this term that like once you get to this age, you no longer can learn at that same rate. And so neuroplasticity is this. And what we've learned with psychedelics is it isn't. And mindfulness, I mean, there's breathing techniques and meditation techniques that can give you the same like neuroplasticity improvements and change of behavior just by doing these very specific meditations that we're seeing in psychedelics. So I think what this does is it brings an opportunity for us to challenge traditional medicine and how we may have looked at this mind-body relationship and the possibilities that are now available that we're unlocking to improve our overall health and wellness, and especially communities who have been more challenged with finding improvements in the quality of their lives.
It's so incredible. And I've read about this and heard about it, and it's just so incredible what the results are and the improvements that people are seeing. But is it at this point, is that something that you have to be like in a clinical trial to receive? I mean, this isn't even allowed in a lot of places, or tell me about that, because it's like I can think of people off the top of my head who would just like benefit from this. And this is also back to what we were talking about throughout this whole episode. This is from nature. This is from plants.
Yeah. And I will say what I love about this space is there's such a strong voice for making it equitable, which in the traditional pharmaceutical world, we don't talk about interventions being equitable across the board. And I love this new space and really bringing that to the surface, because as it should be. And I really attribute to the fact that these are special plants that are coming from indigenous communities and so forth, and so that voice is strong, and so I'm very grateful for that. To your point, it's interesting. So cannabis obviously still hasn't been rescheduled federally, but every state has the right to kind of decide what they're doing, and so every state's a little bit different. On the psychedelic side, there hasn't been obviously any federal rescheduling. There is quite a few discussions, but some states have taken the initiative to decriminalize. So, for example, I live in Colorado, and the state of Colorado was one of the first to decriminalize a handful of different psychedelics. What that means is still to be determined. You can, for example, psilocybin, which is the psychedelic mushroom, you can grow them and you can possess them, but you cannot buy them or sell them. And so, there are ways for people to access them. there's quite a few information platforms that allow people to understand how to navigate that. I would like to see, for obvious reasons, the rescheduling so that we can be able to help people get delivery systems that are consistent so they actually know
Mhm.
what they're getting and they know how to bring that and integrate that into their therapies and however they want to improve their quality of life. That would be very helpful for people. There are a number of clinical trials. Yes, there's a number of countries that's legal, so you can go to other countries as well. And there's a number of retreats that you can go to as well where you can have a micro macro dose of some sort while also having it accompanied by a therapeutic intervention. So they're definitely available. And what's fascinating, you Google. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And I feel like for people who are having that resistant problem that you mentioned earlier, this is a great option,
it's
and to have
incredible.
somebody, yeah, I mean, yes, there's a need for it. So tell us about, you have another brand as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Southern Butter. That is our sexual wellness brand that will also bring a glow to your world. What was interesting is we had customers coming to us asking if they could use our green goo products for intimate purposes. And the first few times we're like, okay, that was awkward, just set that aside. But then friends and family started coming clean and they were like, no, actually, we've been using your products and we're wondering if it's okay to use them. And we're like, what's going on here? So my sister and I decided to look at this space and we found very similar parallels as the first aid space, meaning the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they thought these were the only products that could get the job done. The conventional consumer was like, I don't care about the ingredients. I just want something to perform well. And the reality is, a lot of these chemical laden lubricants don't perform well. They're full of chemicals, silicone, and they'll give you this sense of a glide, very short lived, but then they're also sucking all the moisture out of your skin with all of the chemicals. And so, like, you need them more. And then, especially for women, it becomes more and more uncomfortable. And, it used to be a thing where we only talked about lubricants if you were perimenopause or menopausal. We have a lot of things in our environment now that are disrupting our our need for a lubricant or want, because quite honestly it's just more fun with it. But I think initially lubricants were just identified as that, and there's a lot of medications and all sorts of medical conditions that can interfere. And so my sister and I did the same thing. Let's bring a plant-based solution that has superior efficacy. And what you'll find, and it's so interesting, we massage our we hydrate and use lotions or salves for our entire body, but we don't moisturize down there. And what you find with these butters and salves and oils is so fun is that one, they're a phenomenal lubricant, but two, they also hydrate your skin and nourish your skin, which then increases sensitivity. And we wanted it to be more inclusive. It was not an inclusive space. So, that was an important mantra for doing this and being more about just sex, not just like the act of having sex. What brings people into the bedroom? And for some people, it's like, I need to be calm. I need to like calm down. Other people, they need stimulation, maybe aphrodisiacs, feel very like exotic. So we brought in different essential oils that are either stimulating or calming or aphrodisiac in nature. And when you have these oils in your room and, there's massaging and all this other stuff, like the room smells amazing. And then your skin glows. And then like the room continues to have this beautiful smell. And so it's just fun. And it's a lot of fun. So highly recommend the Southern Butter. Once you have it, you'll be like, you didn't think something was missing in your life. And then you have it and you're like, oh, this was missing and now it's better. It's
I
pretty
love
fun.
it. I love it. I feel like, and if there is one area where you should be using a natural product, it's that area. So this has been so much fun. I would love if you could tell everybody where to find you, where to get your amazing products. I will be one of them. I can't wait to try them out.
Oh, thank you. Greengoo.com. You can find all the Green Goo plus the Southern Butter products there. You can go to
Okay.
southernbutter.com as well, but Green Goo does house all of the brands. And we do have a new tab coming, Things We Love. So, in the spirit of holistic skincare, we'll start bringing in some other brands and sharing those and how they may be contributing to your overall health and wellness. So, those will be coming soon.
Awesome. Well, it was so fun talking. I loved everything that you shared with us, and I really appreciate you for being here.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me. I could sit here and chat all day long with you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Please subscribe and review so we can reach more people who want to learn to glow alongside us. See you next time.